Welcome to the show, Lani.
Thank you. I'm happy to
Now
be here.
I'm happy you're here too. What my favorite question to ask is what's your sober date?
So May 1st, 2023.
Okay.
So I just over 18 months.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What was going
It is
on
a
April
wonderful life.
30th? What was going on April 30th of 2023?
Um, a whole lot of BS. Let's put it that way. So I actually pulled into my driveway and my wife texted me and said, "Do not come inside." And I was like, "Oh shit." Okay. So she came out and she had handwritten a letter stating that I had 30 days to get my shit together, pretty much. I mean, there was a more to it, but that's all I heard, right? And I was like, "Oh, this is great. I've got 30 days to get my shit together. Like I can do that." Coming to find out, what she actually meant was, you need to haul your ass off to treatment for 30 days. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I did. I didn't go until May the 5th, but my sobriety date is May 1st.
Okay, so you stopped for a few days before you left.
Well, I slept for a few days. So yeah, amphetamines are my drug of choice. So
All
I
right,
slept for a few days and then I went to treatment.
and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Are you from the Triangle?
I am from Charleston. Well, I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. I live in Charleston. I grew up just northeast of here,
Oh,
so I'm
okay.
on the coast.
I've had a bunch of people from Carolina, from South Carolina, and from Charleston. So I've never even I lived. So when I saw Wake Up Carolina,
Hmm.
um, I thought of North Carolina because that's where I lived.
Okay, what
And
part?
Durham.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I lived in Durham for a year during my addiction, and that was my heaviest drinking that I did was when I lived
Mm.
there. I had just lost my fiance to suicide, and
Oh wow.
I had decided to leave New Jersey and move to North Carolina and start over. The
Of
problem
course.
with the problem with doing that is I brought me with me,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and I fell into going to the bar 5, 6 nights a week, and if I wasn't at the bar, I was at home drinking the entire time,
Sure.
and I was drinking 7 days a week for a good year, and then went back to Pennsylvania and started, a business with my dad and brother. I was making good money, so I started driving from Amish country to South Jersey to get pills 4 to 5 times a week, and just the insanity grew and
Oh
grew and
yeah.
grew. So you're from South Carolina. Do you have any brothers and sisters growing up?
Yes. I have several. I have two younger sisters that were in the house with me. Um, and then I have half brothers and stepsisters. But I have two younger sisters that from birth um, that I grew up with.
Now, your parents divorced then?
So, yes. So, my parents and my biological father are divorced. My mother remarried my stepdad when I was 3. So, he was, definitely that father figure in my life.
Okay. So that's
And then
good. So
he's since passed. So,
I'm sorry
um,
to hear that.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's been, I guess, 7 years. So,
Okay. Yeah, it's never easy. I lost my dad about a year and a half ago, and
yeah, I wish
doesn't
I
ever get
wish I could
easy.
tell you it gets easier, but yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't too much,
Uh,
unfortunately.
Especially with the holidays, and
Absolutely.
it definitely takes a toll on your mental health
Yeah,
when
for sure.
there's that missing staple when it comes to family. So
Yeah, it's already a tough time anyway with that, the Bermuda Triangle of it, right? Like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. So
office
it
Christmas
definitely,
parties.
yeah, every reason in the world to drink, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's always going to, but if you're an alcoholic, there's always going to be a reason to drink.
Oh, absolutely.
You
100%.
know?
Good,
So,
bad, or indifferent.
yep. And right now I'm in the middle of recording all these episodes for. I'm releasing a daily episode from Thanksgiving Eve to New Year's Day.
Oh, wow.
New episode every day to kind of raise awareness around relapsing during the holidays.
I love that. I love
So
that.
your episode is going to be right in December somewhere.
Nice.
So if you're watching it right now, it's mid to late December.
Right. It is not that time of year. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
All right. So was your biological dad in your life after 3?
Here and there, not really. He was pretty good at being an absent father. And it, the thing is, it made it easy because my stepdad was everything anyone could ever want from a dad. Like, he loved me like his blood ran through my veins from the moment that he met me. He's told the story, until the day he died, that he fell in love with me before he fell in love with my mom. So, it's really hard to miss someone when you have such a wonderful father figure in your life.
Yeah.
So it made it easier, I guess. But no, he wasn't. I mean, I would go when I got a little bit older, probably teenage or so. I would go every other weekend and stay with he and my stepmom. And then I have a sister and a brother, that, they had. So that was probably, I guess I was probably 12 or 13 when that started for, a few years.
So when you mean let me catch up. So you said when you were 13, 14, you would spend time with your dad on every other weekend?
Yes, my biological father.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay. So he was kind of absent in your life early on, and then when you became a teenager, he kind of was trying to make up for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now we're on the same
Sorry.
page.
I know.
No,
I tend to talk a little fast and get off the subject. So
no, me too. And
you have to reel me back in.
That's fine. I can do that. So what did you discover first, drugs or alcohol, and how old were you?
So the first time I did anything, I was 13, roughly. I'm pretty sure I was 13. And I was actually at my biological father's house. They were building a deck. He and like a ton of his friends, on the back of his house, and they got a keg of beer. And he told me I could have a cup, right? And I was like, okay, sure. So, and I did. And then he caught me going back to the keg for 2 or 3 or 4. And he's like, I told you I could only get one. You can only have one. And I was like, okay, finally, I just gave up. Like, it just wasn't worth it, right? And, I hear a lot of people, talk about how, when they took that first drink, it was like, all, they had this aha moment, this like bright light, like this amazing, like all the weight came off their shoulders. Yeah. And that didn't happen to me. But what did happen was I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was going to do that again. There was no question. It wasn't like, oh my God, that tasted horrible. Like, I don't remember any of that, right? All I remember is thinking and knowing that I was going to do that whenever I could for as long as I could. So that was my realization. It wasn't like, the chains have been broken and, all this wonderful, warm, fuzzy feeling. It may have been that. But I know more so than anything, I knew that I was going to drink again. There was no doubt in my mind.
Yep. No, I felt the exact same way. I was 11. And then, my friend and I would drink Captain and Coke and, watch movies when he would sleep over. And by the time I was 12, I started drinking alcoholically. And I don't mean I was drinking every day, but I was drinking with the intent to get drunk every time I drank.
Absolutely. I can relate to that.
I wasn't drinking for the taste or for fun. I was drinking to take down, I was bullied. So I was like, go home from school on a bad day at school. like, okay, I'm going to go drink about it. Or, somebody passes away. Okay, I can drink and I'll feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things that happen, like I said a little bit ago, there's always going to be a reason for why we drink.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Now,
it was a great day. I think I'll drink. Oh, it was a bad day. I think I'll drink.
yeah,
It rained outside. I should probably stay home and drink.
yeah,
Oh, it's the sun's out. I should go to the beach and drink.
yeah.
We can always find a reason to justify and rationalize, right? That was one of my biggest things, throughout my, addiction and alcoholism, was I could rationalize anything and make it seem okay. For me anyway, inside my head, I could make it okay. It was ridiculous to hear out loud, but, they say our thinking is our problem. It
What
was
gets us
definitely
in
mine.
trouble? Yeah.
Yeah.
So 13 years old, you discover alcohol first. When does it escalate for you?
So I was an athlete. I played, D1 collegiate softball. But drinking, I drank every weekend throughout high school. That's just what we did. I grew up in the country. We went down a dirt road and we drank every weekend. That was just the way it was. And during the week, I played ball. So, and then sometimes during the week I would drink. But then it was all alcohol. Like the strange thing about my whole story is I was a kid that, we would have parties, at friends' houses, and people would come in and have a joint. And I'd be like, you got to leave. And so I knew in my mind, or what I told myself was, drugs are bad. Alcohol's okay. Right.
So
And
you had said earlier your wife had given you an ultimatum, basically, of getting your shit
mhm.
together. Now, when did you know you were gay?
So I came out when I was 19.
Okay.
And I'm
Did you
only a
know
few years older than that now. Not true.
Did
Yeah.
you
So
know?
I'm 49 now. I came out when I was 19.
Did you know before you were 19?
Absolutely. I knew from a pretty young age, but definitely by the time I was in high school, I knew, and didn't act on it. I grew up in a very small town. Super small town, had a small high school, everybody knew each other, that sort of thing. And I didn't know anyone that was gay until I went to college. And I was like, oh, that's what all those feelings are. Wow. Like, I'm not the only person in the world, so that kind of opened my mind and opened my eyes to, that I'm not just abnormal, like that this is a thing. I didn't even know, I had no idea really what it was even called, to be honest.
Yeah, because this was what, 94, 93?
Yeah, I graduated high school in good math. I graduated high school in 93. And I actually came out, I guess, officially, when let's see, 18, 19, I guess I was 20, or just right at 20. I was 19, probably almost 20, or maybe right at. So, and it was like this whole world opened up for me, where I didn't feel like that something was wrong with me, that because I met people that were like-minded, I guess, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, it makes total sense. And in college, besides that big event happening in college, that were you drinking more now that you kind of were not with your parents anymore? Did you
Oh,
find yourself
absolutely.
drinking more?
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. I I did pretty good my freshman and sophomore year. I say pretty good. I still drank. Um, but I don't believe that I was drinking alcoholically at that point. And then I went to a junior college for my freshman, sophomore year, and then got a scholarship to play D1 softball at College of Charleston here. And by the time I got here, that, I guess that would have been my junior year, I was drinking alcoholically to the point I got kicked out of school because of it. And I believe that that is, now I can say that that was at least most of the reason. Softball had been my love forever, and it wasn't as important as going out and partying.
Yeah.
And it had never come in second to anything.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. I played sports all year round, and
Mm-hmm.
I loved playing sports. You know, I played hockey in the fall, football in the fall. I played hockey and basketball in the winter. I played
Mm-hmm.
baseball in the spring. And once I started really getting into drinking, like partying, I didn't go to a D1 college or play college ball because my drinking had progressed so badly in high school that by the
Mm-hmm.
time I was a senior, I was like, fuck all the sports.
Right.
Like, didn't
Yeah.
even play my senior year of football because I felt like it was going to interfere with my
Mm,
getting drunk every day. Because at that
yeah.
point, I'm drinking every single day, I'm smoking weed every single day, I'm taking muscle relaxers all the time, and I couldn't be bothered to do something else. To have a commitment besides that. That was what my mind was set on.
Yeah.
So I know that feeling of like having that love of your life
Yeah.
of an activity like a sport and then throwing it all away because the drink or the drug was, way more important than the sport is now. I used to have, there was a quote that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it was all about, how drinking has taken over our lives. And I think it was something like, I thought I was going to be a baseball player when I was a kid, and that's all I focused on until I started drinking. That's when I knew that like my life wasn't going to be revolved around sports; it was going to be revolved around this activity. It
Yeah.
was,
Absolutely.
and you
I
said
can
you got
relate
kicked
to that
out.
so much.
You got kicked out of
I
school
mean,
for it.
I got I got kicked out of college. Yes, I never went to class. I took no exams. And of course, I used to joke, oh well, the beach is to the left and class is to the right. And really, it wasn't even that I was going to the beach. I was just going to the bottle, right? Like it didn't matter where it was. It could have been in my car. It could have been at a party. It could have been in my dorm room. Like it really made no difference. I just, use that as, oh, well, the beach was so enticing, right? It really wasn't the beach. It wasn't like I was going to like surf or, or anything like that. Like I was going to get shit faced. Like that's why I was going. I didn't know how to do anything, um, you know, I guess activities like that, without drinking. Drinking went along with everything for me. And I mean, even as I got older and I tried to play, softball or like a rec league or whatever, I would drink prior to.
Yeah, drink
And
during.
yeah, and drink during, like, and I would be like, oh, it's because I'm getting older, like I've got to have that lubricant, or whatever, like every excuse in the world, right? Like every excuse in the world. Um, but for me, and I think I can speak for a lot of people, you know, alcohol was never deemed bad growing up. Like it was just a way of life.
It's so socially acceptable. I mean,
Right.
there's ads for it on TV, there's ads on the radio, there's ads in movies. It's, romanticized in movies. Think about
Absolutely.
like teen comedies like American Pie. They go to
Hmm.
big parties, keggers.
Yeah.
And as a teenager, for me, watching movies like that, I'm like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do in high school. You're just
Yes.
supposed to drink and make stupid decisions because it's the time to do that. Like I romanticized, remember The Outsiders?
Yes.
My friend and I would watch that in fifth grade every time he slept over, and we would steal Captain Morgan from my parents' basement and make Captain and Coke when we were 11
Yeah.
because we wanted to be cool like the Greasers.
Exactly.
So like right off the bat, I'm romanticizing alcohol at 11 years old.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's everywhere. You know, it's it's funny because I you know how like your phone listens to conversations and then throws you ads based
Oh,
on
absolutely.
my ads on like Facebook and stuff are all alcohol because I talk about alcohol so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
that my phone thinks, oh, we know what you'll like. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. They don't know anything about triggers, huh?
I got good at there's three dots in the corner of advertisements and I click on them every time I get an alcohol ad and I say I don't like this ad because like it's spam or something like that.
Yeah.
And so they show me less and less now because all the things, all the times it pops up, I was saying I don't like this ad. The same thing I had to do for gambling because I quit gambling in July.
Oh yeah. That was that was something that I questioned significantly in my addiction was whether gambling was an issue for me.
Yeah, gambling definitely became an issue for me. You know, it's I quit all the drugs and then I found myself gambling every day because, you know, I'm like, well, I used to play sports, so I know sports.
Right.
And
Yes.
baseball's on seven. Like it was one thing betting on football because football is on maybe once, twice a week. And, you know, sometimes 3 or 4 days a week football's on, but mostly it's Sundays and, you know, Saturdays for college football. So it was a once a week thing to gamble. Football season ended and baseball season started, and that shit's on
I mean, it's
7 days.
almost year round now.
Yeah.
Baseball is, you know?
Yeah. Baseball's on from March until, you know, end of October.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's on 7 days a week. And I had the MLB package so I could watch any game in the entire country. And I was like, and in Pennsylvania in 2019, sports betting became legal. So it's
Oh wow.
right from, I didn't have to have a bookie. You know, I didn't have to do it
Right.
illegally. I could do it from the comfort of my phone and just watch my bets unfold. And then,
Yeah.
of course, I become, you know, obsessed with the bet. And it's all I would think about was bets. And, you know, it took over. And it wasn't like I was losing a ton of money, but it was affecting my relationship with my wife because it's the only thing I cared about was placing the bets and paying the bets out. So
Yeah.
it, you know, I like anything that makes your life unmanageable is a problem.
I agree. I agree 100%. I told myself when I went to treatment, I said, or when I got out of treatment, I was like, okay, I'm not going to buy any scratch offs or buy any lottery tickets in my first year of sobriety. Like that was, you know, kind of my deal to myself because I wasn't sure, you know, I'm like, I like, I like to feel good. And when I win, I feel good, you know? So I kind of took that out of my life just to see, you know, because I mean, I was buying a ton of scratch offs. Um, and so, you know, my 1 year sobriety, you know, and I really didn't think about it, you know, or anything. And then it was actually, I think it was right before my 1 year, my wife and I we're coming home and we stopped at the gas station. And I was like, hey, the Powerball's up to like, I don't know what it was, like some ridiculous amount, like 500 million, you know, or something just stupid, right? And I was like, just go buy, please go buy a lottery ticket. Like, I can't do it. I've made a promise to myself, right? I was like, please. And so she went into the gas station. I think it was to get a vape or something. And she came back out and I was like, did you get a lottery ticket? She goes, no. And then she looked up and yeah, they put the little like light up signs to say how much it is, you know, or whatever. And she looked up at it and she goes, holy shit, I'll be right back. I got to at least buy one, you know? And I was so I kind of got around it that way, you know, for the first
Yeah.
year. And still now I don't like, I can go into the gas station, you know, or whatever. And I kind of look at them and I'm like, well, you know, I've gone this long. Like, it's not that big a deal. Like, I don't need something because I've replaced my life with, you know, with such positive stuff, you know, a program and, you know, fellowship and you know, a great marriage. Like I don't need that other, you know, artificial, you know, happiness, I guess is kind of what I, you know, the way I look at it, you
Yeah, and we
know.
all have those rules that we make for each other in recovery because, you know, they say don't get into a relationship the first year in recovery. And so I listened to that, you know, when I first got into recovery 6 years ago, and I met my wife, you know, about 2 weeks before I hit my 1 year mark. So that worked out. And then,
You know, right? Thankfully, right?
yeah, and I quit game.
I'm glad you didn't walk into my life 3 months before that because
I
you
know
know,
it would have been tough to, you know, push that
yeah.
off. And then when I quit gambling July 13th, and I told myself no more sports. Like I'm not going to watch sports for the first year of my recovery.
Oh wow.
The only exceptions I made were if my team makes the championship.
Okay.
So the Phillies are my baseball team, and they did not
Okay.
make it to the World Series, so I didn't watch any World Series, which was tough for an avid baseball fan as I am.
Yeah, for sure.
Such a big series with the Yankees and the Dodgers. You know, I checked
I
the
know.
scores.
Yeah.
I checked the
You
scores.
okay.
I wasn't watching the games, and no football so far this year. It's week 9, I think, and I still haven't watched football. But if the Eagles make the Super Bowl, I'm going to watch that. You know, if the Flyers make the Stanley
Yeah,
Cup,
yeah.
I'll watch that. The Sixers aren't doing shit, so I'm not missing anything there.
Right.
So, all my
Isn't it's interesting to me, you know, you kind of maybe, you know, kind of hit on a thought. And I've thought about this before in sobriety, but I think it's quite interesting. I do it for myself a lot, is I have to make deals with myself, right? You know, like, I mean, you'll hear in the 12-step program, you know, oh, I can drink tomorrow, you know, type situation. But I find myself, you know, making deals with myself. Like you can do any, you can, you know, oh, I really don't feel great, but I love my job, you know, so just go and see if you can make it till 12 o'clock, you know, or whatever that looks like. Right.
I do that shit every day with work.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's like those small little wins, right? You know, it's like, holy shit, I did it. Yes. You
Yeah,
know, but I
I
mean,
work.
I think it's important, you know, in sobriety to be able to make deals with ourselves and for it to be you know, like an acceptable feat. Because I think a lot of people, you know, and I know I was like this early in sobriety where you know, I was like, I'm never gonna have fun again. I'm never going to feel those feelings that I felt in the beginning that I was chasing in addiction, right?
Yeah,
And so for me, I had to set myself like little rewards to get me to, you know, that next day or that next afternoon or whatever that looked like. Like
yeah.
I
My
needed to
wife's
reward
struggling with
myself.
that now. My wife's struggling. She and they I'm still getting used to this. They quit um smoking weed on October 1st,
Mm.
and they're really good at painting. And like a lot of the stuff behind me, they painted, you
Oh
know.
wow.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see it.
um and so, you know, they have a passion for painting, and they have been struggling with having that creative part come out of them ever
Oh, without.
since they quit smoking weed.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge frustrating part for them when it comes to, you know, was I only good at painting because I was smoking weed? And you know, it's tough to watch because I can't do anything about that.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
I definitely can relate to that. So I know we kind of talked about, you know, alcohol and then, you know, I had and then amphetamines were introduced into my life, right? So when I went to treatment, it was for an Adderall addiction is actually why I went. Um, that was, you know, what I was using and abusing, you know, or
I'll
misusing
get
at
there.
that time. So I owned my own business. It was my dad's business after he passed. And it was a lucrative business until it wasn't, right? Until I sucked all the money out of it, right? And So when I got home from treatment, I obviously still own my own business, and I would go and try to do my job, and I'm like, I can't do it without Adderall. Like, I don't know how to work without Adderall. Like, it's all I've ever known, right? And that was a huge thing. So I can definitely relate. I mean, I know it's not like the creative juices, or anything like that, but in the sense of, not feeling like I can do what I used to love, and I couldn't do it anymore. I don't own my own business anymore, you know? So, and I believe that that's one of the reasons why. I believe that I was, walked down this path of where the job that I have now, I know that, that is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now in my life. Like, there's no doubt. But
so in your 20s, we'll even backtrack again, Lani. In your
yeah,
20s,
sure.
you left school unbegrudgingly.
Yep. Unfortunately.
Were anybody in your family upset about you getting kicked out?
Yeah. I don't know if it was even upset. I think it was more disappointment. I also, when I got kicked out, was also the same time that I came out. So those two things correlated. So I don't really know if they were upset, to be honest, because we weren't talking about anything. We definitely weren't talking about the fact that I was gay, other than, you can't bring people into the house, or whatever. So I moved from Charleston and moved in with two of my best friends who are also gay, and moved to Rock Hill, South Carolina, and started my adult, I'll say my adult life, there. And so there was a year, probably 2 years there, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, that I didn't really have a relationship, right after I came out with my family. So maybe I'm sure they were upset, but I think more so it was just a level of disappointment and not understanding what exactly happened.
Yeah, and not understanding what gay was, because this is the mid 90s, and
Right, exactly.
the only time I
Exactly.
heard about someone being gay was Ellen,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I
she
know.
was
Yeah. On her show, when they pulled all the ads, like, I swear, you say that, and that was one of the first things I remember, that I can remember, where it was, talked about like it was, at the dinner table, like in conversation. It wasn't necessarily positive conversation, but it was definitely a conversation. And I believe that with all of that cluster time in my life, right? So from age 20 to, I guess, 23, from 20, that's when I started drinking alcoholically. No doubt in my mind, that happened. And then I believe it probably the age 24, 25 is when I started doing hard drugs.
like
I
what?
say hard drugs. That's when I started doing ecstasy and meth. And then drinking wasn't important to me then, because
Yeah.
those two things don't go together. At least they didn't for me.
No, and they
So,
don't. Like cocaine and drinking go together, like milk and cookies.
right.
Um, but meth, once you're doing that, you don't really need anything else to go along with it.
No, not at
Um,
all.
and
Not at all.
I talked to plenty of people that use meth, and once you start using meth, it's kind of the only thing that you care about putting into your body.
Absolutely. And I wanted to put as much as I could. It didn't matter what I had to do, where I had to go. That is all I cared about. I was trafficking meth over from Tennessee, Georgia line, from Knoxville, Tennessee to Atlanta, Georgia. It's just reckless, absolute insanity the insanity that we talk about, right? I had, no way, shape, or form of, you know, I wasn't being careful. Like, it didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter. It was almost like, now that I look back on it, it was almost like I wanted somebody to catch me, right? Like, I wanted just something to pull me out of that, just lost space of a wasted life. And
Now,
and
who
that's
introduced
what
you
it
to
felt
meth?
like.
Who introduced you to meth?
So I was partying hard at, in bars, after hour clubs. It started out with ecstasy, and I was selling a ton. I mean, 100 tabs a night easily.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. But and then one of my friends, the same guy that gave me, that was my, I guess, drug dealer, distributor, friend, whatever you want to call him. He's like, you can make a ton more money if you sell meth. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. And so in the beginning, I just was still, doing ecstasy and selling it. And when I was making money, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Let me just try it. Like, what is all this about? And that was it. From that moment, from the first time I smoked my first bowl of meth, that was it. Like I knew it was like that same feeling that I had when I took that first drink at the age of 13, right? I didn't get that, aha moment, maybe a little bit more with meth, but the thought, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I'm going to do this again as much as I can.
That's how I felt when I was introduced to opiates when I was 22. And, I call it the I have arrived moment.
Yes,
And,
I like that.
That's how I felt. Like, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been searching for. I don't need to drink anymore. This is going to replace my drinking habit. And I won't drink 7 days a week anymore, because I moved out of my parents' house when I was 20, and I didn't go to college or anything. So I moved out of my parents' house. I went to a county like a junior college for a couple of years, and then I dropped out. And because I wanted to live on my own, and I couldn't afford to pay for school out of pocket while living on my own. So I dropped out to live on my own. The problem is I was the first person out of my friend group to get an apartment. So that means everybody was coming over to drink and party. So I was drinking 7 nights a week. And by the time I turned 22, I was burnt out from drinking. Like, it wasn't working anymore like it used to. It wasn't giving me the same feeling of escapism. And then I tried perks. And once I tried a Percocet, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do instead of drink every day. I'm going to do these every day. And I did them for 9.5 years.
Yeah.
Every day. I didn't have money every day, but I sure found it.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how, we can hustle up $50 in no time when we need to buy drugs, but God forbid we hustle up $50 to pay a bill, like back then anyway. I mean, now, thank God I don't have to do that, that street hustle anymore. But, but back then, I mean, it was like, oh, I don't have, $20 to put minutes on my phone, but I'm high as hell, It's all about, where that value lies, which and I think about it a good bit. I mean, that was 25 years ago, or 27, 20, I guess 26, 27 years ago for me, during that, that stint. And I can close my eyes today and remember that feeling. Not the feeling of being high, but the feeling of desperation. And I don't, for me, I don't think that's a bad thing. It kind of reminds me of where I could end up, if I'm not sober, if I'm not substance free, that's exactly where I'll end back up. Because I know for me that to go back out will mean death. There's no doubt in my mind, because I know how I am. And I know that I am that person that will burn it to the ground. Like, I will do everything I can get my hands on. And with the way the world is today with fentanyl, I will be dead. No doubt. Like, because I'm not going to sit there and test something to see, if it has fentanyl. No, I'm just going to take it. And so I know that it means death for me.
Because around where I live, around where I live in the middle of the mountains in Pennsylvania, and
Yeah.
people are making their own meth. Where we live, we hear of houses exploding all the time from meth labs inside the
Hmm.
house. But I'm also hearing that meth is inside, or fentanyl is inside of meth around here.
It is. It is. I mean, it
And
is here. And I mean, I can't believe that it's not everywhere else, you know? And that's why I'm like, and the big thing here in South Carolina right now are pressed pills.
same,
So yeah, pills that look like Adderall, that look like Xanax, that look like,
Perks,
Roxy's, that,
yeah, the Roxy.
yeah, Percocets, whatever. Um, you know, and I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, the
That's
lethal
why I'm
amounts of
afraid.
fentanyl are in
Yep,
7 out of 10 pills here. And I mean, I'm actually in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, so it's a little bit, still Charleston County, right? But 7 out of 10 pills that are confiscated have a lethal dose of fentanyl in them.
I'm afraid of opiates now, Lonnie. Like,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, and I haven't touched an opiate since April 24th of 2018.
Wow,
And Roxy's were
that's
my
amazing.
addiction. Roxy's are my addiction, were my addiction. I had a
Yeah,
relapse when my dad passed away, but that was with prescription medication. I was abusing Ativan, and then I abused Valium. I was abusing my medical marijuana. I was smoking all
sure.
day, every day. And I haven't, but I have. My point of what I'm saying is I haven't bought street drugs since April 24th of 2018. I'm afraid of a relapse.
Yeah,
I'm afraid to
yeah,
buy street drugs ever again.
yeah. I mean, I can totally relate. I mean, and that's, I don't know. I mean, I know when I went to treatment, I was buying Adderall from, a quote unquote friend, right? Who got it for her kids, sold it to me, right? And I didn't know anything about pressed pills, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, whatever. I didn't even know that was a thing, and maybe it wasn't as much a thing then as it is today. Like, I don't really know. But I do know that, if, if the, if the press bills and I would have been buying them from just whoever, I know that I would be dead right now. There's no doubt in my mind, and I know that that's what it would end up, if I were to go back out. That's what would happen to me. And my life is way too good today to even for 1 second to think that there's a substance that can make my life better than what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not all great days. Like, it hasn't been rainbows and butterflies, for the last 18 months. It hasn't. There's been some hard times. There's been some sad days, and I've gotten angry, and and all this kind of stuff. Like, I've felt that whole array of emotions. Um, and there's been sadness, and sadness is really hard to not want to combat, and to try to find something to make you feel better. But I think one of the things for me that has helped me the most is the fact that I'm okay sitting in that, because feelings are temporary. And that's what I have to keep telling myself, is that the way I feel, in that moment, I'm not going to feel tomorrow, or, a week from now, or whatever. Like, I have to tell myself that I don't have to sit in that. I do have control over that part of me. Like, I can get up, I can move, I can go out in the sun, I can go to the beach, I can, whatever it means to me, and whatever, gets me out of that, sadness, right? Because it happens. It's all of those feelings are a hell. I'll take those any day over the feeling of desperation and insanity and, pure, like, self-loathing that I felt in active addiction, because
Yeah.
that was every day. That was my emotion. It's just the other emotions were fake. The happiness, the laughing, the, feeling accepted, all that stuff. They were fake emotions. That wasn't reality for me, because reality for me was I couldn't look at myself in the mirror because I was so just disgusted with myself.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I used to think that happiness was a feeling. It
Right.
was a way you were supposed to feel. And somebody I went to rehab with 6.5 years ago, we're still friends to this day. He was on my podcast last year. He said to me, happiness is a choice and not a feeling.
Mm.
And he was like, you can wake up and see that it's raining and you can say, oh shit, it's raining today, there goes the day. Or you can wake up and be like, oh cool, it's raining, now I'm going to stay in and watch some movies.
Yeah.
And ever since he's told me that happiness is a conscious effort and a conscious choice that you can make, it totally flipped my world on its edge, because I was like, holy shit, I can make that distinction. I can make that choice every day to be happy.
Yeah, it's all about perspective, right? It's all about perspective. And and I always thought, when you brought that up, it made me think about this. I always thought my entire life that I had to I had to get something to make me happy. Like whether it was a present or whether a phone call or a drug or a drink or, acknowledgement from somebody that, I like, or, whatever it was. Like I had to receive something to feel happiness. Like I couldn't just be happy. Like I couldn't find happiness inside myself.
Yeah.
It had to be something that was given to me that I took from somewhere, and that's those, and it didn't necessarily for me didn't have to be material things. It could be just, somebody paying attention to me because I'm a people pleaser, like it
When
could be
did
just
you meet
somebody
your
paying
wife?
attention to me or my niece or my nephew wanting to stay at my house instead of going home. Like it's just something that somebody gave me, whatever that looked like. Right. And I would eat it up. And I thought that was the only way that I could feel happiness was because I got something. And I know now that it's not the things that I get that create happiness. It's what's inside me that creates my own happiness. Like I create my happiness, with perspective and changing the way I look at things like the rain, or it's, November here and it's still 80 degrees, not that I like cold weather, but it is weird. But I just, it's all about how you look at that and how you flip that to be a positive instead of a negative.
Yeah. Now,
And it's an amazing thing.
so with you running rampant on meth, how did you meet your wife?
So she never knew me back then. So that was 25 years ago. I was actually married previously to another woman. She and I got clean off of meth. And I patted myself on the back for 25 years. I didn't drink or use for about 3 years after that. And then I started drinking socially, we'll call it. That didn't last long. It accelerated into alcoholic drinking very quickly. So I never went to meetings. I never went to a, treatment or anything when I stopped using meth. And I literally patted myself on the back and said, I've been clean and had a clean date, like, and never put two and two together that because I was still drinking, I wasn't clean. Like I wasn't clean, I wasn't sober, I wasn't substance free. And so that, like I said, that went on for 25 years of me drinking until about 10 years ago. Actually, probably longer than that, probably about 15 years ago. I started taking Adderall. And when I started taking Adderall, I took it the way I was supposed to. I was prescribed it, right? So for the most part, I took it the way I was supposed to. Like when I ran out of my prescription or whatever, then I was okay for a while, for 5 years, on it. If I didn't have it, it was okay. It wasn't that big a deal, until it was a big deal. And my world shut down when I didn't have it. Like I would sleep for 3 days. but I, of course, had been up for 2 or 3 days, like that kind of thing. When I went to treatment, I was taking about 450 to 500 milligrams of Adderall a day.
As opposed to 30 that's prescribed.
Say that again.
And usually it's only ever prescribed for like 30 milligrams.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I was taking a 70 milligram Vyvanse. And then I would take anywhere, depending on what I could get. I had a prescription for 100 milligrams, a 70 milligram Vyvanse, and a 30 milligram Adderall. Yeah. I know. Ridiculous. Absolute absurdity. Right. I mean, of course, I was pissed because they couldn't give me more. Right. So, that's where I ended up. Right. So, and the nurse, when I got in treatment, she asked me, she said, how much Adderall were you taking a day? And I was like, oh, like, I don't know, 200 milligrams. And she was like, wow. And I was like, wait a minute. That's not true. That's a lie. Like, I was prescribed 100. I said, so I had to have been taking 500, 400, 500, somewhere right in there. And she goes, sweetheart, you're lucky that your heart didn't explode. So that's another reason why when I say that I know if I go back out, it will mean death for me. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, like this ticker's been on this earth for a little bit of time now, like the strain that I put on my body and my heart for that many years, right? I mean, 15 years of Adderall, not at 500 milligrams, but, getting up to that, right? Like the last 5 years of my using I was taking anywhere from, 200 to 500 milligrams every day, unless I was sleeping. So, so that's another reason why, I say that there's, it will mean death for me. And I have to keep telling myself that so that it stays real in my head. So I don't romanticize it, I guess, for lack of better terms.
And you quit drinking this time around too?
Yes. So this is the first time that I've ever walked into an AA or NA or any type of program, any room, or whatever. So I've never really tried to get clean and sober. I've never tried to be substance free. I wasn't really trying back then. I was just like, oh, I can't do fucking meth anymore. Okay, fine. Then I'm not doing anything, but it was never a conscious effort of I'm not going to drink anymore, or I'm not, I just knew I wasn't going to do illegal drugs. Like that was my biggest thing. Like I don't do illegal drugs. And I thought that's what made me clean. When I was in treatment, they asked me, what my DOC or my drug of choice was. And I was like, amphetamines, blah, 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 Adderall. It took me 3 weeks to admit that I was an alcoholic. And so my wife would call once a week and we'd talk to my therapist for like an hour or whatever. And so we were getting ready to end the call. I had to have been at least 3.5 weeks into treatment. And, my therapist was like, was there any housekeeping things like you need deodorant or shampoo, or anything like that? And my wife's like, well, I do have a question. She's like, I need to know what to do with the liquor in the liquor cabinet. And I was like, oh, don't worry about that. I have no desire to drink. It's all good. Just leave it there. Because she's not, she's not an alcoholic, or an addict. Like she's normal as normal can be. So I was like, don't go through that. It's fine. We had an extensive liquor cabinet. And my therapist looks over at me and he goes, do you think that you can drink when you leave here? And I was like, well, I don't think I can now. And I was like, fuck. And so then we went to right after that was my process group, and so I walked in there and I was crying like a baby, like sobbing, and everybody's like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I can never drink again. And it was like somebody had stolen my best friend from me, like that my best friend had just died. Like that's what it felt like. And I was like, because I could always fall back on alcohol. if I didn't have anything else, that was, my saving grace, was that I could just drink and not have to feel, these emotions. But I swear that was the worst day. That was my worst day in treatment. I was like, holy shit, no. Like, you're taking that away from me too? Now I don't look at it that way. But that day was a horrible day for me. It was the worst, absolute worst. Now I'm grateful that realization was, was made, and then that it happened while I was in treatment, and not, once I got back home, and, then was like, oh shit, I can't drink. At least I was able to process that, in treatment, and have support, in a lockdown facility,
Yeah,
because I don't know. I don't think I'd be where I am today if that little piece of that nugget of information, right? If that wouldn't have been, brought up and come to, fruition, I don't believe that you and I would be sitting here talking. I don't believe that I would be sober if that conversation had not been had.
Yeah. Yep. It's one of those things that, alcohol, like we talked about earlier, is just so prevalent. It's all over the place. It's and especially down North South Carolina, it's in the gas stations, it's in the Walmart, it's in the grocery stores. And, at least in Pennsylvania, the beer is not in the grocery stores here.
Oh, okay.
You have to go to I lied. Beer is in the grocery store. Wine is in the grocery store. But it's not in like a Walmart. It's in some of the grocery stores that have like a beer and wine section.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's everywhere here.
Yeah. Yep.
It's absolutely everywhere.
I used to, when I lived in Durham, there was a gas station that I went to every morning to buy a pack of cigarettes and a 5-hour energy and a vitamin water. And I would get all three every morning at this gas station. And I said to the guy, I was like, you don't have twisted tea here. And he's like, what is that? I'm like, you don't have twisted tea, like, beer or like, drinks here. And he was like, if I order twisted tea, you'll buy them? I said, if you order a case, I'll buy the whole case. He started ordering tall boys, 24-ounce cans of twisted tea, and I would buy the entire case from him all the time, twice a week.
Yeah.
And that's what I was drinking. If I went to the bar, I was drinking whiskey and Coke. I remember still to this day, I would get a double shot of Jack and a Jack and Coke and do a shot and then chase it with my Jack and Coke. And that's how I would start my night every time. I would get a cheeseburger for dinner. They had good cheeseburgers there. And I went to the same bar. They had my seat already saved for me every time I went to the bar. I would text the bartender saying, hey, man, I'm coming to the bar tonight. So when I got there, my seat was old because I was a good tipper. My seat was already leaned up with a water in front of it, just saving my spot until I got there. And if I wasn't at the bar, I was at home drinking my twisted teas. So, I drank every single night, and, it was part of the culture. So I'm glad that, do you do step work?
I do. I work. Yeah. I work a 12-step program. I also work, I'm also a smart recovery, facilitator. But, I started, I got a sponsor. I lived in fear. Like, even when I got home from treatment, like, I was scared to death that I was going to relapse. Right. And, so I did IOP, intensive outpatient, when I got out of, when I came home from treatment. And, so that was cognitive behavior therapy, for the most part. And then I also got a sponsor and started working the steps. I work AA, which, the steps are all the same, but then, I felt like I was kind of missing something a little bit because because of singleness of purpose, I didn't feel comfortable talking about my drug addiction, in the rooms of AA. And, so, I told you I own my own business and, decided that I couldn't do it anymore. And, and I got a wonderful opportunity April 2nd of this year to go to work at Wake Up Carolina. And so I'm the harm reduction coordinator there, right? And so through Wake Up, one of my, I guess, jobs or, hats that I wear there is to facilitate smart recovery, and to be, a recovery coach, as well as the harm reduction, that I do. But it was huge for me. Like when I started, going to smart recovery and found that place where I could talk about anything I wanted to. And I had the luxury, of being able to talk about my alcohol use and my drug use and, and the fact that I was pissed off that day, or whatever I needed to talk about. I had that, I was able to do that. So, I do both. Because, some are sicker than others and some need more help than others. And I'm one of those, right? Like I'm one of those.
Yeah, I do. That's why I do NA.
Yeah.
When I relapsed, I took a month off of work and I used FMLA and short-term disability. And I took a month off of work just to like get myself back into the program again. And there's no NA in my area. So I went back to AA. And I found myself kind of like hitting the threshold of what I could share because you're supposed to share about alcohol only. And, I haven't had a sip of alcohol since 2020, and it's not a problem. I can see myself going the rest of my life without a sip of alcohol. But what I couldn't see early on is myself without a benzo or without weed. And so I found a Zoom meeting every day at noon that's based out of Providence, Rhode Island. And I attend there and I got a sponsor. He has 30 years. And, I've been through the steps of AA 6 years ago when I first got clean off opiates. The difference is, let me grab this. This is an NA workbook.
Yeah.
And you have to answer all these questions. Like I remember in AA, I could be done 3 steps in a night,
Yeah, exactly.
But in NA, it's a lot. It's a month just to do 1 step sometimes.
Yep, I agree.
So it's a lot more intensive, but I feel like it's what I needed because I found myself. So I was sitting in a meeting in AA, and I shared about how I'm not alike with a lot of you guys. I was like, some of you were in here because, you can't afford to drink anymore. I can pay $1 copay right now at CVS because CVS just texted me that my Valium is ready for pickup because they haven't put it back yet. And I could spend $1. I could spend 10 dimes in a copay and be high for weeks. And none of you are saying that you can go to a liquor store and spend $1 and be drunk for weeks.
Right.
I was like, so my biggest issue is that and then I was getting these looks like, oh, great. Now he's talking about drugs again.
Yeah.
So, my wife does recovery Dharma and which, it's a Buddhist approach to stuff.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Right now, that's where they're in. They're in a recovery Dharma meeting. They do 2 meetings a day. And that kind of opened the idea up to me like, oh shit, there's Zoom meetings I can go to. So when I had my problem with gambling, I found a meeting based out of Las Vegas that meets on Saturdays and Sundays at noon. And I figured if anybody can quit gambling, it's people in Las Vegas. So why not attend their meetings? Yeah. And they work amazing for me. I've learned so much. This one meeting I learned, not that I learned, but this one woman that shares every Saturday, there are 2 different meetings. So the one person that's in the Saturday meetings, every time she ends her share, it reminds me that happiness is a choice because she'll say, have a great day on purpose.
Oh, I love that.
And I love that too. And I say that whenever I share NA now.
I
is have a
love
great day
that.
on
I'm
purpose.
gonna have to steal that or borrow it.
I steal it all the time. I told her today when I was sharing, I said, JoJo, I was like, I say that now. I
Yeah.
was like, I say have a great day on purpose now. And I appreciate, you saying that all the time because it's stuck in my head.
Yeah. That's a beautiful sentence. And it's a beautiful way of life, right? Because, that was one of the biggest things for me was when I got, and I think I shared this earlier, how am I ever going to have fun? Like, how am I ever going to be able to go to a concert? How am I ever going to be able to go to dinner? How am I
Go
going to
to
be
a
able to watch my
wedding.
nephew play soccer? Like all those, everything in my life I did with a substance in my body for
Yep.
so long that, one of my biggest things, I shared this in a meeting this morning, was, once I got out of treatment and I got home, there was I had a lot of fear because, and it wasn't like fear of relapse or, or being triggered or anything like that. It was the fear that I didn't know who the hell I was. Like I had no clue who I was. I hadn't known me since I was a teenager. You hear a lot, when you took that first drink at the age of 13, that's your age when you take all the substances out of your body. And so I was like a 13-year-old child
An
and had
angsty
no clue.
teenager.
Yeah. I couldn't walk into the grocery store, the gas station. I couldn't go into Walmart. Like I could go to meetings and I could go to intensive outpatient. And that is all I could do because I, I didn't know how to do anything. I had to, it's the weirdest thing, and that was kind of where I started. My therapist at IOP, shared with me, she said, Lani, just do something small. She was like, just drive to the parking lot of the gas station, don't get out and then leave. And then, the next day or a week later, drive to the gas station and actually open the door. Like those little small wins, right? Just that, taking it off one little nugget at a time got me to where I live pretty much a normal life, like most people do. I get up in the morning, I go to work, I come home, I go grocery shopping, I go to Costco, I do, I do all these things now that, that I couldn't do without a substance, So that was a huge thing for me in the beginning was, just not knowing who I was. It was a very lonely, um, isolating feeling in the first couple of months for me getting home from treatment. Um, and it was depressing and, and all that stuff. And if, I'm a firm believer that if I hadn't had IOP, and, a 12-step program, I wouldn't be here. There's no way. There's no way because I was scared to death. And that fear is not there anymore.
Yeah, I got
And I don't,
through. I was a best man at my brother's wedding. I was a groomsman at my sister's wedding. And I got
I
through
love that.
both, sober. I got to give a speech at my brother's wedding sober.
Yeah.
And, I'm used to it's funny because I did stand-up comedy and addiction. So I was used to having an audience, but I was always fucked up. You know what I
Mm,
mean? When I was on stage. So that kind of takes the stage right away. And I was like, how am I gonna go? And in my first thought was, how am I gonna go up there and make these people laugh without a substance?
yeah.
Talking about my brother's wedding, and because I haven't done stand up in recovery, and I've only done it in addiction. So I
Yeah.
was, and you can't control the first thought, but you can control how you react to the first thought.
Absolutely.
Um, so my first thought was, how am I going to do this sober? And then my next thought was, it's going to be easier because you're not going to be high stumbling over your words.
Yeah.
Just go up there and tell stories and they're going to laugh. And that's exactly what I did. And, I said all the things that were important to me. I didn't slur my words. I didn't, change my tone, start shouting and yelling. It was a good tone, and I connected with people. And it was only because I got used to sharing in meetings. Like I do this
Yes.
all the time. I share in front of people all the time sober. And it was so important to me early in recovery 6.5 years ago to go in front of people and share for 3 minutes, because now I'm just sharing myself and not sharing trying to make you laugh. It's me just pouring my heart out every time I'm sharing.
Yes.
Now you can't shut me up in meetings.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I'm the same way. I joke all the time. I'm like, I just really love to hear my own voice. Like, I'm like, there's still a little bit of selfish and self-centeredness there, but I think everything in, that part of me, that's the things that I can moderate. I can't moderately drink. I can't moderately use, right? But I can moderately be proud of myself and enjoy the words that are coming out of my mouth now, because they're coming from a genuine place of wanting to help someone else, and not to get the lights, shined on me so that I can be the center of, the center of the world and the center of attention, right? It's just the fact that I hope that something that I share in a meeting, right, touches one person and keeps, helps them go, I think I'm going to go to the liquor store, and it's like, God, I heard something in a meeting, or whatever, right? Like, I don't expect it, but I hope that at least one person remembers something that I said to go, you know what, maybe I'll just drink tomorrow,
You
or
know,
whatever.
you just reminded me. So when I first started the show, it was July 2021, and I was so obsessed with the numbers and making sure I was connecting, getting a certain amount of views per episode. And I was obsessed by it. And then when I wasn't getting the views I thought I deserved, because I deserved this,
Mm-hmm.
it was taken over. My obsession was taken over me. And then I got a message from somebody one night, and it was like middle of the night, and it was a girl saying, "Hey, I'm from the UK. I just watched 8 of your shows, and I decided I'm going to detox tomorrow. Thank you."
Shut up.
And that keeps me going to this day.
Yeah.
And I don't care
Yeah.
about the numbers as much anymore. I still care a
That's
little
right.
bit, but
Well, of course.
I'm connecting with people. And
That's
that's,
right.
I post so much publicly on my page. I posted
Mm-hmm.
about my 90 day. I was 90 days clear abstinent from gambling a few weeks ago. And I
Yeah.
posted a poker chip with a 90 on it. And that was my 90 days. And 2 weeks ago, a woman messaged me saying, "Hey, I saw your Facebook post about Gamblers Anonymous. My husband's struggling. How can I get him in touch with you?" And I said, "Here's a screenshot of the meetings I go to on the weekends. Tell him
Yep.
to come on through." And he's been to both meetings last Sunday and 2 weeks ago. And he even shared last week. So it's stuff like that that keeps me going when it comes to
Yes.
you said you work in harm reduction now?
Yeah. So I'm the harm reduction coordinator at Wake Up Carolina, and one of the things that we say, is that we hold that space, right? And that's what you do. Every time you click on a podcast, that you start a podcast and post it, you're holding space for somebody. I mean, you'll probably never know all the people that you've touched, but that's one of the things that we say, at our organization, is that we hold that space, we hold that door open. I mean, we tried to have an NA meeting and it didn't take off, but every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, our door was unlocked and we sat in that room waiting. And if nobody came, nobody came, but we held that space for them.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think that's a huge thing. Like, I know that what I do today, in the organization that I work for, Wake Up Carolina, I know that we make a difference. And I have to say we, because our organization is full of people in recovery and not in recovery, people that are normal, that, don't have substance use disorder. but we hold that space, and we do that because we love what we do and know, another one of our, our statements is, where there's breath, there's hope. And that's huge, and that's where harm reduction comes in. Like I get combated, I've had people go, oh, well, Narcan is just, for people that, that use and that are, opioid, whatever, under the bridge. No, it's not. They're not just sitting there. It's not like anybody can Narcan themselves. They're not trying to get higher, and then, oh, well, I think I might be getting ready. That's not the way it works, and to be able to be knowledgeable in that sense, and to be able to talk to people on a normal basis. Yeah. And, like I tell the story about harm reduction a lot, because it's what really clicked for me. I have a very good friend of mine. She calls me one morning and she's a little hysterical. And I said, hey, and she goes, I need Narcan. This is before I even worked at Wake Up Carolina. She just knew I was volunteering. And I said, why, what happened? And she said, she lives 30 minutes away from where she works. She said, I was driving to work. I needed gas. I stopped at a gas station. I was pumping gas. And this mother comes around the corner and she's like, my son's not breathing. My son's not breathing. And so she goes over there, realizes that he's overdosing, had gone to one of Wake Up Carolina's community training, in the past, had Narcan in her car, Narcaned him and saved a 17-year-old boy's life. Like, that's what harm reduction is. Like, that's the perfect example of how harm reduction works. I mean, that mother could have lost a child that day. And would 9 times out of 10 probably would have.
Yeah, we keep Narcan in the apartment.
Yeah.
We live in an apartment complex. I'm pretty sure my neighbor is an addict. Mm-hmm. He does a lot of addict behavior that I picked up on.
Sure.
So we keep it just in case, they ever need it or ever come knocking on the door saying, we have a problem, and what I mean? And because we never know who might need it. And they do giveaways, where I live, free Narcan giveaways.
Yeah, that's what we do too.
I find it infuriating that Walmart and CVS and Walgreens, they're all selling it for $45 friggin'.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I tell people all the time. Like, there was a law passed in South Carolina that, if you're prescribed an opioid, you have to be given the option of having a prescription for Narcan. And I'm like, get the prescription, that's fine. But just here, call me. I'll bring it to you, because, and in hopes that they, that people don't have to use it. I mean, that's a perfect world if they don't have to utilize, the Narcan that has been given to them.
Now,
but I'm a firm believer.
Kits too?
Huh?
You guys do testing kits also?
We do. We have fentanyl test strips and xylazine test strips.
I was just going to ask about xylazine, if that's down
that's
your area.
Nasty stuff.
Yeah,
because
I'm originally from outside of Philadelphia, South Jersey, and I grew up 15 minutes from Kensington, which everyone knows about Kensington and about what's going on up there. There is no heroin left in Philadelphia.
There's not a ton left here from what I've heard.
Yeah,
just about everything's fentanyl. Yep.
And it's not fentanyl, it's xylazine.
Yeah.
And I had a girl on my show that I grew up with, and she was, lived in Kensington for like a year and a half. And she said the crazy part is once I did the xylazine, I could never do fentanyl ever again, because if I was withdrawing and I did some fentanyl, I would still be sick and I would still be withdrawing. That's how powerful the xylazine is that the fentanyl doesn't even touch it when it comes to giving you some kind of relief if you're withdrawing and sick. And if you think about it, it's fucking horse tranquilizer.
Exactly. And Narcan doesn't work on
a horse. Yeah.
Yeah, and Narcan doesn't reverse, an overdose for xylazine. which is it's so scary. I mean, that on top of the sores, you
Oh my
know,
God. Yeah.
I mean, people are losing, fingers and, arms and, I mean, it is some nasty, nasty stuff, man. I mean, and it's like I said, that's the reason why I can't, I have to stay firm in my sobriety and stay right where I am and stay substance free because, I know me. I know me. And I
Yeah.
know that me out there on the streets is going to be a dead me. There's no doubt. There's just too much stuff out there, that you don't even know what you're getting, and that's the thing about, test strips is, yes, I mean, I suggest anybody who wants to recreationally use or not, even if they do have substance use disorder, at least test it. I mean, they're not 100%, but, it's better than not, it's better than not testing.
Yeah.
Type situation. But I mean, with fentanyl and xylazine now, I mean, it's scary.
Yeah.
Like it's scary and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I
To
had another
even,
girl that was on her arm was so bad from the xylazine that she could see her tendons.
yeah,
She could see her tendons in her arm because so bad, so much of it had rotted away on her
hmm
arm from shooting xylazine, and she had to have like an emergency surgery done when she got clean, or else she was about to lose her arm.
yeah, that's just crazy. But and I know that we've hit on this a few times, but that's the insanity in it, right? Like she can literally look down at her arm, see her tendons, and go, "I have to have more.
Yeah.
I have to have more." And it's so interesting, to me to, and I don't debate whether, it's a disease or not, with people. For me, I believe that it is because, and that's a perfect example of the fact that nobody chooses that. You don't choose to look down and because of the drugs that you've injected to see your tendons, nobody in their right mind is going to choose that. So that's how I have to believe that this is, that this is a disease, and because otherwise, there's some really sick people in the world, right? That choose that. I mean, it's just not a choice. It was never a choice for me. It was never a choice whether I drank. It was never, once, there's this. I guess it's a statue. I don't know. I've seen it, but it's very cool. It's this guy's face, and there's a bottle, and the bottle kind of melts into his face, and it's the
First the drink takes us, or first we take the drink, and then the
the
drink
drink
takes
takes us.
Yep,
Yeah,
I knew exactly where you were going with that.
yeah. I mean, and it's true. I mean, whether it's drugs or it's alcohol or it's gambling or whatever that addictive behavior looks like for us, right? That once we do that substance or drink or action, it takes us, and it only takes one. It
Yep.
only takes one, and that's all it takes. Um, and it's a very slippery slope. But I mean, I could tell you, that for me, staying sober, staying substance free is a hell of a lot easier than getting substance free. Because getting to that point was horrible.
Yeah.
And getting into and walking into recovery, it was nothing that I wanted to do. I did not go to treatment because I was on an uptick. I mean, it was, I went to treatment because I believed and knew that if I didn't go, I was going to lose my house, my wife, my family, my business. I was going to lose everything if I didn't go, but I stay in recovery today for me, not for them, not for the house, not for the car, not for my job, not for my niece and my nephews who I adore. I do that every single day. I wake up every single day and thank my higher power that I'm able to have one more day. And that's all I can do. That's all I can hope for.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't want to, I'm not trying to change the world. You know, I'm not trying to, you know, to be this amazing person that saves everybody anymore. You know, like I don't need that. But if I can save one person in the business, you know, in the job that I have, in the role that I have, then that's worth it.
Yep. I
That's
couldn't
worth
agree
staying
more.
sober another day.
Yep. I appreciate you coming on, Lani, and telling your
Yeah,
story.
for sure.
Share with me. I had a good talk with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I really, truly appreciate it.